Beings there are accustomed by their producers, or as they say, parents, to an entirely contrary impulse, namely deceit. To teach and to suggest to their children how to be insincere with others and deceitful in everything has become so ingrained in the beings of the planet Earth of the present time that it has even become their conception of their duty towards their children. And this kind of conduct toward their children they call by the famous word education. They educate their children never to be able and never to dare to do as the conscience present in them instinctively directs, but only that which is prescribed in the manual of the Bon Ton, usually drawn up there just by various candidates for Hasnamusses. And of course, when these children grow up and become responsible beings, they already automatically produce their manifestations and their acts just as during their formation they were taught, just as they were suggested to, and just as they were wound up. In a word, just as they were educated. Thanks to all this, the conscience, which might be in the consciousness of the beings of that planet, is, from their earliest infancy, gradually driven back within, so that by the time they're grown up, the said conscience is already found only in what they call their subconsciousness. In consequence, the functioning of the mentioned data for engendering in their presences the said divine impulse conscience gradually ceased long ago to participate in that consciousness of theirs by means of which their waking existence flows. That is why, my boy, the crystallization in their common presences of the divine manifestation issuing from above for the data of the arising of this sacred being impulse in them proceeds only in their subconsciousness, which has ceased to participate in the process of their ordinary daily existence. And that is why these data have escaped that degeneration to which all the other sacred being impulses were subject, and which they also ought to have in their presences, namely the impulses faith, love, and hope. Furthermore, if for some reason or other the actions of the divine data crystallized in their presences for the said being impulse should now begin to manifest themselves in them from their subconsciousness, and should strive to participate in the functioning of their abnormally formed ordinary consciousness, then no sooner are they aware of it than they at once take measures to avoid it, because it has already become impossible in the conditions already existing there for anyone to exist with the functioning in their presences of this divine impulse of genuine objective conscience. From the time when the said egoism had become completely inoculated in the presences of your favorites, this particular being property became in its turn the fundamental contributory factor in the gradual crystallization in their general psyche of the data for the arising of still several other quite exclusively particular being impulses, now existing there under the names of cunning, envy, hate, hypocrisy, contempt, haughtiness, servility, slyness, ambition, double-facedness, and so on and so forth. These exclusively particular properties of their psyche, which I've just named, utterly unbecoming to three-brained beings, were already fully crystallized in the presences of most of your favorites, and were the inevitable attributes of the psyche of every one of them, even before the period of the very saintly Ashiata Shiemash. But when there began to be fixed and to flow automatically in the process of their being existence, the new form of existence intentionally implanted in them by Ashiata Shiemash himself, then these strange properties previously present in their psyche entirely disappeared from the presences of most of the three-brained beings there. Later, however, when they themselves destroyed all the results of the very saintly labors of this essence-loving Ashiata Shiemash, these same psychic properties, maleficent for themselves, gradually again arose anew in all of them. And for them, the contemporary three-brained beings there, they are already the foundation of the whole of their essence. Well then, my boy, when the data arose in the common presences of your favorites for engendering this unique particular being impulse, egoism, and when gradually evolving and giving rise to factors ensuing from it for other also particular but now secondary strange being impulses, this said unique property, egoism, usurped the place of the unique all-autocratic ruler in their general organization. Then, not only every manifestation, but even what is called the desire for the arising of such a divine being impulse became a hindrance to the actions of this all-autocratic ruler. And in consequence of this, when eventually your favorites had already, by force of necessity, both consciously and unconsciously, always and in everything, prevented it partaking in the functioning of that consciousness of theirs through the control of which it had become proper for them to actualize their waking existence. The actions of those divine data were gradually, as it were, removed from the functioning of their ordinary consciousness, and participated only in the functioning of their said subconsciousness. And it was only after my detailed researches and investigations had made all the foregoing clear to me that I understood why there arose and why there still exists that division of themselves there into various classes or castes, which is particularly maleficent for them. My later detailed researches and investigations very definitely and clearly showed me that in that consciousness of theirs, which they call their subconsciousness, even in the beings of the present time, the said data for the acquisition in their presences of this fundamental divine impulse conscience does indeed still continue to be crystallized, and hence to be present during the whole of their existence. And that these data of this divine being impulse are still crystallized, and their manifestations still continue to participate in the process of their being existence, was, apart from the said investigations, further confirmed by the fact that I frequently had a good deal of difficulty on account of it during my periods of my observation of them from the planet Mars. The point is that through my Tescahuano from the planet Mars, I could freely observe without any difficulty whatever the existence proceeding on the surface of the other planets of that solar system. But making my observations of the process of the existence proceeding on the surface of your planet was, owing to the special coloration of its atmosphere, a real misery. And this special coloration occurred, as I later ascertained, because there appeared from time to time in the presence of this atmosphere large quantities of those crystallizations which were frequently radiated from the presences of these favorites of yours, owing to the particular inner impulse which they themselves call remorse of conscience. And this proceeded because, in those of them who chance to receive and experience some kind of what is called shock to organic shame, the associations proceeding from their previous impressions almost always become